This podcast is part of Mishmash Media. Is this the end?
Of season 5, at least it is.
Oh, it is, yes, absolutely. Welcome to another episode of Curbcast. My name is Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And every week, my buddy and Steve and I, we talk about every episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. We get each episode in chronological order and review it scene by scene. This is the first time we are watching these episodes, so we are pretty fresh to this. And yeah, we're talking about the season 5 finale. I enjoyed this one a lot, Stephen. Probably one of my favorites of the season. The end. I was saying to you off air that I really appreciated the mid-2000s TV CGI. It was definitely of its time. Very clunky.
Yeah, very, very dodgy, very clunky, very obvious. But it kind of adds to the episode, I think, because Curb, is not like a fancy show in terms of technical. It doesn't have like a fancy technical aspect. It's not doing like amazing CGI or stunts or anything like that. So it kind of felt right. But yeah, it was definitely noticeable and definitely funny.
Yeah, it was hilarious. But no, I really liked it. Like, I didn't expect Larry to actually die and then go to heaven. And I was saying to you before that he's so neurotic that even heaven doesn't want him.
Yeah, they deemed him not ready, not done yet. He has to go back and, I don't know, learn some lessons or humble himself or do something, make some changes before he's welcomed back to heaven, at whatever point later in his life. I really like the episode as well. Much like the last, I found this to be basically the same as every episode for the last half of season 5, where the initial watch was a bit like, it's okay. And then upon, second, third watches, I really liked it more. The same with this one, because it's a bit of an odder episode, a bit different, a bit more philosophical, dare I say, a bit deeper.
A bit deeper, yes.
Larry being reflective of who he is and changing, and, we'll talk about it more as we go along, but definitely a season ender. And it kind of reminded me of the ending for season 4.
Opening night.
Yeah, opening night. It was a bigger episode. It was longer. It was 45 minutes. There was more to it. It was more elaborate. I kind of appreciate that. Season 1, 2, and 3, the endings obviously were big episodes, but they weren't as grand. They were still half an hour long, and they kind of just, they followed the same level of, I guess, of eventfulness as the rest of the seasons, and then just, ticked it up a tiny bit to wrap it up. Whereas opening night and the end, they really ratcheted up the concepts and the length. And, I feel like that's been a deliberate choice the last couple of seasons. Like Larry and the production crew and the writers have all said, let's make the season endings really big.
Yes.
And I really appreciate it because, it's memorable, it's fun. And, it gives them an opportunity to do something different as well, like the CGI or, just experiment a bit and have a bit more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah, there's definitely more of like a largeness with like the finales recently. And I'm hoping that as we watch more of the seasons, because like I said, this is our first time we're watching these episodes, hopefully in future season finales, they're as big as those, if not bigger. Or they have maybe like big events that, change the whole course of like the characters and stuff.
Yeah, it's just a nice way to end a season. Like I like the low-key approach to most of Curb, but, an occasional big episode or eventful episode is fun as well. So, hopefully they keep it kind of the way it is with bigger season endings. That would be sweet.
That would be, yeah. And if you want to get in touch with us, talk about the end, or you want to talk about any other Curb season finale or about Curb in general, curbcastpod@gmail.com. You can also reach us on the major social media platforms. Curbcastpod is where we're at. And you can find us pretty much on any podcast service. And we do have a Patreon as well, $1 a month. That helps keep the lights on our podcast network, Mishmash Media, patreon.com/Mishmash Media. You'll find that link in the show notes.
That's right. And if you want to rate us or review us on your podcast app of choice, that would be awesome as well. Or just tell someone who might like us. Maybe they're a Curb fan or a Seinfeld fan, and they might want to hear two Australians talk about Curb.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And we do have a Facebook fan group called the Curb Your Enthusiasm Fan Club, where you can share your memes and stuff. And that's how we found out about this very special news, Stephen. We put that on our Curb Your Enthusiasm Fan Club page. So what is the special news that we found out today about Curb?
Yeah, so just for timing, we are recording on Good Friday, and on April 10, it was revealed it was reported on that the previous night there was a live panel, a Q&A that had Larry, Jeff Garlin, Cheryl Hines, Jeff Schaefer, all the main cast of Curb. They did a panel event at the Directors Guild of America, and it was an event tied in with the Emmy Awards, and they reviewed and talked about the season 11 episode, which we obviously haven't gotten to, called The Watermelon, which sounds interesting.
Yes.
And in the Q&A section, at the end of every season of Curb, all the Curb fans know that could be the last season, might not be the last season. Larry was asked, will there be a season 12? And he confirmed, definitely.
Yes.
So, exciting news. So there will be a season 12 of Curb. Have no details as to when, what it will be about, anything like that, just that it will happen. I am reading, as I'm speaking, I am reading a little article from Variety, and it does mention that a couple of the production staff on the show said that they expect it to happen sooner rather than later.
Great.
Because with so much happening in the world at the moment, post-COVID, now Ukraine and politics and everything else going on, there's a lot of material for Larry to be inspired by, and apparently he's in a really good, excited kind of frame of mind to write Curb. So hopefully it's not as long a wait as it has been for the last 2 or 3 seasons. There's been long gaps between each season, so I'm guessing it's probably going to start getting written this year and maybe shot next year, something like that. So
perfect. So it's good that Larry's in the right mindset to do it. So strike while the iron's hot, Larry.
Exactly.
Right? So that means they'll probably be some of the best episodes ever of Curb.
Yeah,
by the sounds of it.
Definitely. So
can't wait to review that eventually.
Indeed. So season 12 of Curb's coming your way at some point.
Absolutely, that'd be amazing. But we're not quite there. We're going to be doing season 6 from next week, so we'll be halfway there, just about.
Yeah, long way off.
Long way off, indeed. Anyway, let's get into it, Steve. Season 5, episode 10, the season finale, The End, aired in the US on December 4th, 2005. Larry discovers who his real parents are. He flies to rural Arizona to meet them. After a life-changing religious revelation, Larry decides to give Richard Lewis his kidney. Will Larry survive the operation, or is it the end? And some highlights about the episode, Steve. We find out, or we see Larry David's mother in heaven, played by Bea Arthur. She's most famous for being in the main cast of The Golden Girls. And a little fact about Bea Arthur: this was her last acting appearance before her death.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty cool way to end it.
Yeah, being like a loud Jewish mother.
Yeah, she's, I think that was kind of who she was as a person, because she has that stern, no-nonsense attitude and personality in Golden Girls. So, I think they cast her well.
Yeah, they did. And we see, towards the end of the episode when Larry's in the hospital bed, we see, some of the characters that appeared during the season. The rabbi who Larry pissed off with the 9/11 situation, and a few others as well. The Greens, of course, Cheryl. They're all pretty much nearly a few people there. And Lewis gets out of his coma at the start of the episode.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned last week, there's a lot of, I was expecting them to start wrapping the season up in terms of, closing off the season-long storylines like Lewis, like the kidney donation, like the adoption last episode, but they didn't even touch really on anything last episode. So they had a lot to cover. So they really hit the ground running, opening scene, hospital, well, not opening scene, but very close to Lewis wakes up, and they really just get on with it. So it didn't feel too rushed.
No, it felt just fine, didn't it?
Yeah, and and not just wrapping up the storylines, but adding a lot more as well, as we'll talk about.
Absolutely. Well, actually, I've got a few more trivia facts about this episode, Steve. Quite a few interesting ones. So Larry's guides in heaven, when he goes up to heaven temporarily before they send him back, they were played by Dustin Hoffman and Sacha Baron Cohen, would you believe?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, I was like, who's the tall guy? And then I heard his British accent. I'm like, he sounds familiar. And I was like, I went on IMDb. It's like, because I recognized Dustin Hoffman right away. It's like, short guy. That's him, definitely.
I was going to say Dustin Hoffman's a very famous Jewish man, so and Sacha as well, so makes sense.
It makes perfect sense that they're in heaven. Yeah, absolutely. But I had to look a few times, and I was like, I went on IMDb and I'm like, that's Sacha Baron Cohen. Yeah, okay, cool, awesome.
Yeah, sometimes you forget Sacha Baron Cohen is actually just a well-spoken English guy, because all of his characters are, heavily accented or ridiculous. You kind of forget about the actor and his real voice. Yeah.
And this is like a year before Borat came out too. So this is just, before he became international.
Yeah, before peak powers. Definitely on the way up. Ali G was big, but it hadn't quite, he hadn't quite reached his full, I guess, peak powers.
Peak powers, and he got it a year later. Good on him.
Totally.
The man sitting next to Larry on his return trip from Arizona is executive producer and frequent Curb director Robert B. Weeder. Yeah, so there you go. For those who recognize him. And Stephen, one last trivia fact. You'll love this one because you are a massive Sopranos fan, like myself. Larry mentions The Sopranos in reference to the missing DVD case. And in a Sopranos episode, I don't know if you remember this one, Stephen, the character Uncle Junior mistakes himself for Larry when he's going through his TV channels.
Yeah.
Because they look very similar, the actors.
Yeah, I do remember that. I can't remember which episode, but I think it's maybe season 4 or 5, and Junior has it's the early stages of dementia. So he's starting to not, his grasp of reality is starting to slip. And he's also undergoing he's in the middle of a massive court case being covered by the media. So he's been seeing himself on TV a lot, going in and out of the courthouse and whatnot. And when he sees Larry David on TV, because of the dementia and because of the TV coverage, he thinks that, Larry David is himself because they have big glasses and they're bald and older sort of men with white hair. And he can't quite tell. And he thinks that the TV is exaggerating him because, Larry David's a bit more ridiculous.
Yes.
Whereas Junior Sopranos obviously is pretty no bullshit. Yeah, so it was a nice nod. So I do remember that, but I didn't realize it was reciprocated in. Well, I knew after watching this episode that they mentioned The Sopranos because it's an ongoing little storyline in this episode. But I didn't put the two together. I forgot about the Curb reference in The Sopranos. So it's whether it was deliberate or a coincidence. Whether one acknowledged the other. Just as like nodding back. I don't know, but it's cool that it happened on both ends.
Yeah. Plus, they are both HBO shows, so it makes sense to integrate them to tie.
Actually, it feels too. There's too much connection for it to not be deliberate.
It was. Yeah.
Let's just give each other a nod, just to just for fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense considering they're both from HBO. So, good for them. And I'm sure people have mistaken the actor who played Junior as Larry David many times.
Yeah. No, they do. They do look similar. And they're both got a New York accent, and there's a lot of similarities there. Both the same age, both part of television history as well. So
absolutely. Anyway, let's get into it, Steve. Scene 1 of the end. Larry and Jeff talk about the asking price for one of his cars. Jeff says that he will find the blue book value and he'll pay that amount, which makes Larry happy. They're having a bit of a chat. Cheryl walks outside to say, after she was on the phone, to say that Lewis is out of his coma, which shocks the duo. So very short scene, but a little bit to unpack. So Larry wants to sell one of his cars to Jeff, and trying to get a good price. And Jeff says, you know what, I'll find out the value, the blue book value, and I'll get you that. And Larry seems pretty happy about that. So at first we see that Jeff seems to be pretty honest, but later on in later scenes we find out he was shortchanging Larry.
Yeah, bit deceptive. And that, I think that, we'll elaborate a bit more when it sort of becomes more evident. But I think this sets up not only the storyline of Larry, not the storyline, but the little, the plot line of Jeff shortchanging Larry. But I think it also contributes it has a big part to play in Larry's, spiritual awakening, I guess you would say, or his his self-reflection that he undertakes later in the episode. It's not just a friend ripping off another friend. It becomes very monumental later on.
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
It's I guess it's the most recent example of friends betraying friends, and that was the theme of the church session that he goes to later on. But yeah, it becomes more and more relevant as the episode goes on, I guess.
Yeah, and when we do get to that hospital scene with Larry on his temporary deathbed, there was lots of stuff that shocked me in that scene. But when we get to that, I'll explain it. But yeah, this is definitely one of them. Like, you think Larry and Jeff are just so close, and then suddenly Jeff, what we'll tell you later, like what he does, it's like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's like a new dimension to Jeff. I don't know. It's just sad. But like I said, we do find out that Lewis, he's out of his coma as well, and they're really shocked. So that means Larry or Jeff have to give their kidneys. Yeah,
it really, like I said just before we started getting into the actual episode, it really hits the ground running. They got a lot of ground to cover, a lot of storylines to wrap up, and within the first minute, Cheryl coming out and saying Lewis is out of his coma, kind of, it's all just going to roll out from here.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said, this one was just like a really short scene. It was like less than 2 minutes. A minute and a half. And this basically sets up the episode. Yeah. Lewis is on the phone in his hospital bed. He says that he's having a party with friends in his honor after awaking from his coma. Larry asks Lewis about the kidney situation. Like, is Lewis going to give a kidney or not? Lewis says he's giving no one his kidney, as Larry says that he is selfish for saying this. And Lewis wonders why Larry goes to visit him all the time. Larry claims that he does volunteer work with other patients, and he happens to see Lewis and walks in every time. Which even Lewis is suspicious of Larry's comings and goings. Lewis says that he feels better after his coma, as Larry congratulates him with no enthusiasm. He's just basically like, oh, congratulations, whatever. And he walks out.
Yeah, his opportunity to not give Richard his kidney is now gone. He realizes that it probably will have to be him.
It will have to be him to save his friend, yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, we see Lewis for the first time. He's talking for the first time in the series, and he's an obnoxious guy.
He is, yeah. He's just, he's a lot. And yeah, it makes sense why Richard doesn't like him.
Yeah, I know. Richard doesn't want anything to do with him. I don't blame him. Jeez.
Yeah. I thought it was funny that Larry, I mean, I guess it was put on the spot. I don't think he expected Lewis to know that Larry had been visiting him a bunch for, and be confused about it. He's like, I barely know you. I think he said he met him once. But Larry's just further complicated the situation by saying, I do volunteer work. That would be an easy truth for Lewis to find out, that's not true. Like, you know what I mean? Like Lewis that would be very easy information to verify or not, whether Larry actually does volunteer work.
Sure.
And then it would just he's just digging himself further into the hole by adding more bullshit by saying, yeah, I do volunteer work. He could have just said, well, I just wanted to come and visit you to make sure you're okay. He didn't need to mention the volunteer work, because that's so easy for Lewis to disprove.
Yeah, and the way that Lewis asked Larry why, he goes to visit, he doesn't seem suspicious about it. He's just kind of like naive about it. Like, I heard you came to visit me a lot.
Yeah, he seems curious, but not. He doesn't suspect Larry's got any nefarious motivations or anything like that.
Like the doctor last week, or the week before, very suspicious.
Yeah, totally. And the doctor figures it out.
Absolutely, he can see right through him.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas Lewis is kind of oblivious. But yeah, I can see why Lewis is generally a non-speaking character on the show. God, he'd be so annoying.
Totally, yeah. And it's like, he doesn't even say or do anything specifically bad. It's just his overall character. There's something about him. It's like, ugh. No.
Yeah, disgusting.
Yeah.
Larry is in the hall of the hospital and he spots a silhouette of Richard Lewis in the distance, who is walking with a stick, and he's walking very gingerly. He's looking much sicker than he did last time. Richard walks past Larry. Richard gives him the 1,000-yard stare, and he walks off to go see Lewis, and Larry is speechless. So I think Larry realizes at this point that his friend's basically on death's row, basically. And he probably doesn't have long to live. So he's got to probably do something.
Yeah, it's very confronting for Larry. He's obviously got a lot to think about now that Lewis has woken up. And he's probably also a bit worried about, like, well, what if Lewis finds out I was visiting him just to make sure that he was going to die, so I didn't have to donate a kidney. And then seeing, like almost like a ghostly appearance of Richard. I knew from this scene that this episode was going to take a few more directional risks, I guess, or directorial risks, I should say, just experiment a bit, because it was kind of semi-surreal. It was like something out of a horror film where, like, where someone sees an apparition or like a dream or something, and Richard sort of, like you said, you see the silhouette and then he comes up and it's a bit, there's a lot of drama to it. It's mildly intense.
It was. I like the direction of this scene. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
it looked like something out of a horror film. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it helped sort of set up the stakes, not just for Richard, but for Larry and the choices he has to make, and, what he has to grapple with now that Lewis is awake, and how much does he value Richard as a friend. And it does a lot with a little, and I really like it.
Yeah, I like it too. This is one of the many reasons why I really like this episode. So,
yeah,
it was just like they were doing like more daring kind of things that they don't do too often in this episode. So, no, good on them. No, it was good. It was well done, yeah.
For sure.
Larry recounts to Cheryl that Richard looked like the spectre of death. There you go. That's a good way to describe him. As he walked past him in the hospital, Cheryl asks where a DVD case is. And Larry says that he explains his system, and he mentions this several times in the episode. He explains his system to make sure the DVD is always in the case. So what does he do? He puts the DVD case on the television or something, and then he puts the DVD in. And then when he's done with the DVD, he takes it out, puts it back in the case on the TV, and then puts it away. He's got a system, and he never fails him, which makes sense. I do that as well. Like if I'm watching a Blu-ray or something, I always put the the Blu-ray cover under the TV.
Okay.
And when I'm done, I just grab the Blu-ray, put it back in, and put it back on the shelf.
Yeah.
I agree with Larry. Yeah, because I hate missing like cases.
Yeah, there's nothing worse.
Nothing worse. I know, it's annoying. So,
yeah, especially like a year later or 2 years later when you pull it out and you're like, you can't remember.
I know.
You've lost a CD or a DVD or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, or even worse, you've lost the case and you just have like the DVD.
Yeah,
shit, I got to go buy like a sleeve or something to protect it.
That's true. But
That's
I'd rather lose the case than the actual DVD because at least you still got the DVD.
That's true. That's very true. At least you can still watch it, but you
That's,
just got to be more protective of it.
yeah, you can put it in another case or get a sleeve, or I don't know, keep it in the DVD player and only watch that forever.
That too. Yeah, I would just leave it. Yeah, just keep like The Sopranos season 2
Hey,
episodes 3 to 6 in there or something, and watch
hey,
those for the rest of your life.
if I was stuck to watch a show forever, that would be okay with me.
Me too. Yeah,
Yeah, that would probably be my pick anyway.
absolutely.
Yeah, I do think he's very proud of his system. He thinks that it's foolproof, even with a system of, I would call it more of a habit than a system. It's just, this is what I do, rather than like an actual. There's no documentation. I just think the word system is a bit, Larry's over describing it a bit, because
He talks it up a little bit, doesn't he?
yeah, and it's just like, well, because I've got this routine or this habit, it can't be my fault. It's obviously your fault, because there's a lot of ways that routine could go wrong. He could forget to put the DVD case on the TV. He could get distracted. And Cheryl's just, she's not entirely convinced. She's like, well, your system, it's not like you're writing it down or documenting it, or there's no redundancies here. It's just a habit. So I can see why she's not entirely convinced. She's like, well, it still could be you.
It still could be you.
Yeah.
But yeah, Larry he's really proud of his system. He seems to be proud of some, things that people like you and me, we don't give really a second thought to.
Well,
But
we're just,
to him,
well, we're just like,
happening.
yeah, it's just a good habit to minimize the chance of loss of a DVD, or whatever the habit or the routine or the system's there for. But I think I think for someone like Larry, whose life's pretty cruisy, coming up with what, like you said, what we would just take for granted and do as a good, just DVD hygiene, I guess.
DVD hygiene.
Like for him, with not a lot going on in his life and a pretty cruisy lifestyle, that's a big thing for him. Like, he would go to bed that night thinking, I had a really productive day. I made a lot of strides as a person, came up with a foolproof DVD watching system. Whereas you and I would just be like, yeah, that would just be a normal habit to ensure that we kept our DVDs.
Yeah.
Larry's got a lot of time to be proud of something that we would just think is pretty mundane.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, you're right, because of his cruisy lifestyle with basically like little to no stress.
Yeah.
The only stresses in his life are something that usually he puts on for himself.
Totally, yeah, like, little interpersonal issues, or not understanding basic human society.
Or, having to give his kidney to his friend.
Yeah, I mean, that that's a fairly stressful thing.
That is, for everyone, yeah. Later on in the conversation, Larry exclaims that Richard, he's more of an acquaintance than a friend. He's trying to come up with reasons not to give the kidney to Richard. He's like, oh, even though I've known the guy for like 30 years, he's just an acquaintance. Even though they're, they're more like frenemies, right?
Yeah, totally. I think overall, if you did like a montage of the footage so far between them, I think there would be more friendly footage than animosity. I think if, I don't think it's 50-50. I think it's like 80-20 maybe, like friends, enemies. But yeah, still definitely frenemies.
Yeah, friends who like rib each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or fuck each other over as opposed to fuck.
Only when they want something, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Larry is, him trying to convince himself and convince others that he's not really that close with Richard. Kind of reminded me of one of the stages of grief called bargaining, where, you're trying to make sense of it, trying to justify it.
So he's basically at the end of the stages, right?
I think bargaining is maybe the fourth one, and then I think it's like anger, denial, bargaining.
Well, we saw the anger and denial from Larry in earlier episodes, so he's definitely going through the 7 stages of grief, 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's grief for himself, that he would have to make a life-changing decision. It's a lot for anyone to go through.
Oh yeah.
So it's not. I don't think it's an easy decision. So it makes sense that there is a bit of bargaining in it. Of like, well, even though it's like reverse bargaining, like he's trying to talk himself out of it as opposed to convince himself that it's the right thing to do. It still kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, but let's see. He does, I think, eventually go to acceptance.
Totally. Yeah, with a little help from Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
The phone rings and Larry's having a conversation with someone. We don't know who it is. We can't hear who's on the other end of the line. He puts the phone down and he says to Cheryl he will see the other person on the phone tomorrow. He reveals it to be Omar Jones, his private investigator, who has info about his parents. So there you go. So Omar found something.
Yeah, a nugget, and it just makes me, I mean, I'm happy to watch Curb anytime, but it was a hook for sure. I was just like, ooh, what's the news? It's juicy.
Omar says that Larry is indeed adopted as he is speaking to Larry in his office. And I like how the camera is focused on Omar and like back of Larry's head. It's really, it's a good shot.
Yeah.
You can't see Larry's reaction, which is clever. It's one of those unseen things that make it unseen, make it more interesting and more funny.
Yeah, and that's a technique and a choice that Larry uses a lot. He uses it in Curb and in Seinfeld a lot too.
It's an absolute Larry Davidism.
Totally.
Definitely. Omar says that Larry's parents live in small town Arizona and they're waiting on his call. The scene cuts to Larry, who is stunned as he is still in an open elevator as many people leave. Moments later, he gingerly walks out in a daze. A montage appears with Larry explaining to Cheryl about his situation while she is in a dressing room. So he goes to like a shopping mall. He finds out where Cheryl is, and you see him running into like this clothing store, and he heads to the dressing room. He bursts into Cheryl's dressing room, and you can see Larry explain the situation, and Cheryl is kind of shocked and happy at the same time.
Yeah, I noticed her happy, and I couldn't figure out why.
Probably because he has like answers.
Okay, yeah. So is it just happy for him that he now knows the mystery solved? Okay.
Probably, yeah. Maybe she's just like, you finally have a resolution.
Yeah, she's okay. No, that would make sense. She's happy that he's got answers.
Yeah, and they hug, and I like how Cheryl, like, she was like halfway through like trying something on. And
Yeah.
she's like covering herself.
I think if it was any other news, like if Larry just found out something not that important and he burst into her changing, even though she's his wife, I think she would be very pissed off. Like, what are you doing here? Go away. Like, But because it's such big news for Larry and also for Cheryl, she's kind of okay with Larry just bursting into the change room and without any sort of notice or whatever.
Yeah, it's life-changing news. Finding out you have different parents. That's like...
But I could just imagine, if Larry, I don't know, if he found out something, like if he found out that he had a sandwich named after him, and he burst into the room and he was like, hey, guess what? There's a sandwich named after me. I think Cheryl would just go, why are you here? Like, why couldn't you wait to tell me when you got home or whatever?
Absolutely. But this justifies it.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's good. And it's good. It's good to see Cheryl happy for Larry. Like, and it's good because it's like you can't hear them talk. There's like music playing in the background and their voices are muted, but yeah, you can see in their faces their reactions.
Yeah,
happy and they hug.
That's a bit of drama.
It does. Larry is on a flight to Arizona and they're about to take off. He's sitting in the emergency exit seat and he asks the stewardess to move his seat, and she says that it's a full plane, and she asks him again if he can be in the emergency exit. Larry says that he's unable to, as he can't rescue people and he needs to move seats. He's not physically capable and he's not ready to do it. He says he chokes under pressure and he becomes more hysterical as he explains it. The stewardess says he will try to find him a new seat and that he owes her one. Larry speaks to the lady next to him to figure out how to open the door. So, Larry is full. He goes to level 9 or 10 neuroticism in this one, doesn't he?
Yeah, he can't handle any responsibility. I think there's just too much going on for him. He's just found out he was adopted. He knows where his parents are. He's jumped on a plane, I'm guessing, the same day or the next day. He probably just gave him a call and planned to visit. Like, it all seems to be happening very quickly. So, that's a lot for Larry to deal with. So now the responsibility of like, hey, can you just man the door in case there's an emergency? It's just too much. I think ordinarily, like if he was just flying to New York for a show or for business and there was nothing crazy going on in his life, I think he would have been okay with it. But it was just too much for Larry that day, considering what's going on.
Yeah. He didn't want to face the responsibility if there happened to be in like an unlikely accident.
Totally. I can't remember the exact term, but the way the stewardess described it, was it an unnatural landing or there was a specific word she chose. It's like this boring kind of like corporate word to describe like a crash.
Yeah.
It was like an
unplanned landing or something.
Unplanned landing.
It was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, you can tell some lawyers came up with that word.
Yeah, it's definitely like litigated. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we need to say plane crash without saying the words plane crash. We need
to
say
to scare our customers.
Unnatural landing or something like that, and it just sounded so lawyery.
Yeah, and then Larry's got like the Asian, like the lady next to her, and he's like, "You're Chinese, right?"
Yeah, I thought that would turn into something, but it kind of just it doesn't, nothing eventuates from that. But I thought him making a point about her being Chinese and then talking to her afterwards to say, you're not, she says, or she acknowledges that she's Thai. Because Larry said something about, I can't read the instructions. They look like Chinese to me. It's basically Chinese to me. And then he apologizes to her and he goes, you look Asian. I just wanted to, apologize. And then, once the stewardess says, I'll go find you another seat.
And goes, you owe me one.
Yeah, you owe me one. And that's when Larry's like, you're not Chinese, are you? And she shakes her head and she goes, and then the next guest, to Larry's credit, is like, you're Thai. And she's like, yeah. But then that's it. For some reason, I thought it would turn into like a minor storyline, like Larry trying to, right that wrong of him calling her Chinese by accident.
Or maybe if he happened to coincidentally, like another Curb coincidence where she happens to be on the same flight on the way back.
Yeah.
Something like
that. I thought it would come back to bite him in some way, but it doesn't. So yeah.
There's too much to cover in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they don't have enough to go through anyway.
Yeah, if this was like an early season episode, I think they would have probably gone with it. But no, it's too much. And I think they wanted to do something really different with the end. This is like their grandest episode up until this point. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to really like showcase it. And not do the typical like tropes in a Curb episode. The plane lands in Arizona safely, and Larry arrives at his parents' house. He goes to the front door and rings the bell. His father opens the door as they embrace. The scene cuts to him sitting with his parents on the couch as Dad explains how he met his mother. They reveal that because they were young and poor, they had to give Larry up for adoption, and Larry is looking at a cross that's on the wall, and they talk about God and Jesus and the Bible, etc. And Larry looks to himself and thinks that he may actually be Gentile, so non-Jewish.
Yeah, he has a lot to process in a short amount of time, that he's a Gentile.
He's a Gentile. It's so great. Yeah, he looks at the cross on the wall and he's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a lot to take in, just being adopted, let alone, well, now, not just my parents, my birth, my parentage and my lineage, but my whole culture and the way I see the world, the way I understand the world, the way, I guess, Christian people, I guess any religion, like if that's your lens in which you see the world and interact with the world, if it's totally different to what it's a lot to, you've got to sort of like, if you walk down that path, feel like, well, I'm not actually a Jew, I'm a Christian, or, whatever it is, you've kind of got to like unlearn or like reverse back through your whole life and recontextualize so many things. It's it's a lot for Larry to process in the moment.
Yeah, and that's why he has like an incredible epiphany at the church later on.
Yeah,
it all culminates into that.
Yeah, but he seems to be, again, like just learning that you're adopted would be big. It would take days and weeks, months for people to sort of get their head around it. And he's also got to grapple with understanding the world through a totally different culture and religion. He seems to be handling it pretty well so far. Like he's sort of just going along with it. And for someone who couldn't earlier that day or the day before handle, manning a door in an unlikely event of a crash, he seems to be taking it in his stride pretty well.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well. He's really taking it in, even though, like you're right, his whole like spiritual fundamentals have changed too.
Yeah, but like I said the day before, he couldn't handle, hey, can you just look after a door if something happens? And he's like, no, can't do that. But like, oh, by the way, you're not a Jew, you're a Christian. He's like, oh, like he's obviously shocked, but he doesn't. Yeah, he's taking it on pretty well.
Yeah, he's kind of taken aback by it.
Yeah,
Larry and his parents are out on the town, and they meet a few of the town's people who introduce Larry as their son. They spot a man who is selling his car, his Prius, like Larry's car that he's selling to Jeff. Larry asks the man how he got the value of his Prius, and the man says that this was the Blue Book value. Larry realizes that he sold his Prius to Jeff for $5,000 less than the guy's asking price. And he gets a bit upset, and he explains to his parents that his friend Jeff ripped him off.
Yeah.
Larry's mum says that the power of Jesus will help him.
Yeah, and this is what I mentioned before when we started talking about when we talked about the opening scene, that, I think this is a big turning point for Larry of like, not just what Jeff did to me, but my life in LA, is surrounded by phonies compared to this like small, in this small
rural
town.
Arizona.
Everyone's very nice and honest, and there's no ulterior motives. There's no fucking people over.
No.
I think the price difference in the car represents not, it's more than that. It's representative of Larry questioning everything in his life. All of the people around him, like, who are they really? What do they really want?
It goes really deep, doesn't it? You're right. You made a good point before how this episode is really like more philosophical.
Totally. Yeah. It makes it's not just a singular event. It sort of represents a deeper questioning of Larry's life and who's in his life and what choices have I made, and is there a better way to live? Can I be surrounded by better people? It's it sets off a huge just a whole questioning of everything for Larry.
Yeah, I know. This is probably his his moment to really reflect. And yeah, you make a good point. Like Larry and Jeff, like this, even though Jeff is technically Larry's employee, they're still friends as well. Like they're still close. And the fact that even like your friend can rip you off for $5,000, it's like, what does that tell you about the LA culture.
Yeah, the fact that Jeff didn't even blink when he obviously underquoted him and ripped him off $5,000. I don't think Jeff even thought it was dodgy. I mean, on some level, I think he would have, because he knows that he's doing it. But I think it would just be like second nature to them. They're like, well, we're in LA. That's kind of just what we do. We all just sort of screw each other over. It's just part of.
And he's probably thinking like Larry's good for it. He's worth nearly $500 million.
Yeah,
what's $5,000 to him?
There's no guilt. I think it's just and I think that even makes Larry go, well, do I want to live in a place where people rip each other off, but then don't even think about it? Don't have any guilt, or don't question themselves, or, there's no residual feelings. It's just how we do it out in LA.
It's just business. I know. Jeez, you throw your mother under the bus to save $10.
Yeah, exactly. There's no, it's just, it's almost involuntary. There's just it's not a choice. It's just the way it is. Yeah, it's interesting how something as simple as and you're right, Larry's got money to burn, and he's not a flashy dude. He's a pretty low key dude. So he's got, money for the rest of his life and forevermore. But, something small relatively is representative of just something. So, it just represents sort of everything in Larry's life, up until this point. Who am I? Who's in my life? Is this who I am? Do I want these people in my life? If my best friend is just doing it without blinking, what does that say about me, about him, about everything? It sets off a massive, it's very upheaving for Larry.
Yeah. And he just realizes that his whole life is pretty much been a lie. Well, not his whole life, but a lot of his circle of influence and stuff hasn't been in his best interests.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that his life's a lie. It's just more, there's
that was over exaggerating a bit. No, he's had a wonderful life.
Yeah, I think he realizes that he could just have a lot more simple, honest, straightforward, less bullshit life, in this small town with his folks and the people who live there. Things could just be much more simple, and he could probably be happy.
Yeah. Oh, well, but at least he has a good time, because later on, Larry is fishing in a boat with his dad, and then they go duck hunting and horse riding, and it's a whole montage of other activities he's doing with his parents, kind of like stuff you do in a small town, which is quite nice. And he's taking to a lot of it. Yeah,
just wholesome middle America stuff, father, son, and I think they chose these things in the montage as well, because I didn't catch Larry's, I don't know if he has a name, but Larry's Christian dad, I guess you could say.
Oh, I just know them as Mr. and Mrs. Cohen.
Cohen, yeah, okay.
Cohen.
Yeah, so Mr. Cohen, the activities he undertakes with Larry are, I think, intentionally the deliberate, the complete opposite to, Larry's real dad. They're sort of typically small town masculine activities, stuff that Larry just has never done in his life.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were funny as well. When they caught the fish and they both beat the shit out of it with baseball bats.
Yeah, just to stun it. Yeah.
It was kind of slapstick humor, but it was very funny.
Yeah. Actually, a really good point about the scene where Larry finds out that he's possibly Gentile. He asks them how their name is spelt, and they say C-O-E-N or something like that. But it's not like the Jewish version. I think the Jewish version is C-O-H-E-N. I'm pretty sure that's the Jewish spelling for it.
Yeah.
So and that's when Larry looks at the cross and is like, "Oh my God, I'm Gentile."
Yeah.
Forgot to mention that. That was a good one.
Yeah. No, that's an important point.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to mention. But yeah. No, it's good. Larry seems to be loving the middle America life.
Yeah. He's taken to it like a duck to water.
Yes, indeed. Or a duck that just got shot with a shotgun out of the sky.
He's taking to it like a baseball bat to a fish.
Yeah. Or a shotgun pellets into a duck.
Yeah. Ball bearing. He's a pretty good, considering he's never really done fishing or hunting in his life so far. He's pretty good at it. He caught a fish and he shot a duck out of the sky first go, or what I'm assuming is first go. He rides that horse confidently.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. I think they showed him doing these things well to kind of sell you this is actually who Larry is. This is what's in his blood. He's actually been living a lie, or he's been living a life that's not who he is. But when he's presented with his real life, or what his life should have been, it's like he's been doing it forever.
Yeah. I actually felt happy for him.
Yeah, he looked happy. He looked relaxed. He was just he was meant to be where, he was meant to be.
Yeah.
He looked content, and him and his dad were getting along, and he didn't look weighed down by life. He just looked happy and relaxed and where he should be.
That would have been a nice ending to the series. It just ends up there, and that's it.
Yeah.
He divorces Cheryl. He's like, "We're done. I'm staying here."
I think Cheryl would like life out there. I think she would move there. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. It's a bit further away from her
save their
parents.
marriage. I mean, that would save their marriage. Larry would actually become like a nice person, and Cheryl would probably be like, "Oh, cool! Like you're actually married to a person now."
Well, I have a different opinion on Cheryl, but we'll talk about her in a later scene.
Fair
But
enough.
yeah, no, I've kind of lost respect for her. But anyway, we'll talk about it when we get there. The three of them are having dinner at home as Mrs. Cohen says grace. Mr. Cohen observes the sign of the cross, and Larry makes a joke about how to remember how to do it. And Larry goes, nose, toes, watch, wallet. And he says, sometimes I keep my my watch and my wallet in a separate part, in the same pocket. So I got to put them in different pockets, and they'll have a good chuckle about it.
Yeah, it's all just very sweet and wholesome.
Yeah, it's a nice moment. Yeah, it's funny. It's just like because Larry's like figuring out what the sign of the cross is.
And it's funny. I guess it's like muscle memory because every time Larry is on like in a good position where he's like charming someone or people are taken by him or like he's getting along with someone, that it's not going to be long until he says something or does something that completely offends. So muscle memory was telling me, he's obviously having a nice dinner and he's had a good day with his old man hunting and fishing. And when he's doing the cross thing, I expected him to do something or say something that would offend them as Christians, but it doesn't happen. So yeah, I think that was another deliberate but unexpected choice of like, no, we're gonna make it so that when Larry's in this town with his Christian folks, he's like, there's nothing he could do or say that would offend them. Like he's just acting naturally. Like there's no boundaries he can overstep.
No, and they're very open to him, and because they're his parents. Yeah, he can say anything and they won't get offended.
Yeah, I expected him to say something about like doing the sign of the cross, like commenting on it about how it's a stupid thing or something, and for his parents to become offended by it. But it all goes very smoothly.
It does. No, I think you're right. I think Larry's just comfortable and he's in the moment, and I feel like he doesn't really need to like pick any fights or arguments. Especially you made a point where when he was in small town Arizona, everyone was like that didn't seem to have like an ulterior motive, and everyone just kind of looked out for each other and stuff. And I think Larry really got drawn to it, so he feels comfortable. He doesn't need to like pick fights.
Yeah, he doesn't need to. He's
even something so nitpicky. He doesn't need to.
Yeah, his neuroticism is basically gone entirely.
Yeah. He's like 0 out of 10 neuroticism now.
Yeah. And he makes it, because Larry sometimes makes a joke out of something. Like he'll point out about how it might be a bit silly, or why would you do this, or why would you say that, like to a custom or to someone's idea of the world. But he usually just pushes it too far, and then when the person he's expressing that to becomes offended, he doesn't relent. Whereas this one, he makes a little joke. He's like, what? He doesn't criticize it, but he kind of, he makes light of what is, a serious thing for most Christians. But he doesn't push it too far. He doesn't.
No.
Keep pushing it and going, well, this is a stupid thing, and why would you do this, and blah blah blah. He just sort of makes one little lighthearted joke about, my watch and wallet are in the same pocket, and and then that's it. So he doesn't have that need to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
No,
even in the face of very obvious offense, because
he's just in a completely different environment.
Totally, yeah. He makes a little joke and he's like, okay, that's enough, and then he moves on.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like that's how people, it's okay to make fun of things, but not to the point of offense.
Exactly. No. He knows his boundaries around his parents.
Totally. And they are, according to this episode, more forgiving because they're Christians. So what would Jesus do?
What would Jesus, yes, do WWJD. The next day, they attend church and sing hymns. Larry, he's singing with gusto. The scene cuts to a sermon by the priest, and Larry is moved by his speech about friendship and how important it is, and Larry has an epiphany. He turns to his parents while the priest is talking, and he says that he has to go, as in go back to LA. In this moment, Larry decides he's going to help Richard with his kidney because of the power of friendship.
Yeah, he realizes that he needs to put his friend's needs above his own concerns.
Yes, and we find out later on if it was like it probably wasn't the best choice.
No, apparently not. But still the right motivation.
Yes, and he still has that Arizona attitude when he goes back to LA.
Yeah, he doesn't. It's not like he just drops it and becomes LA Larry again. He's still, he's Arizona Larry.
Yes. He is on a plane going back to LA as the stewardess from the last flight approaches him. And he's in the emergency seat, and he says to her, I'm comfortable in the emergency seat. I'll stay here. And she's very confused. And he seems less neurotic and more polite on this flight. So he's not having a go, or he's not feeling fearful of being in the emergency exit. And he's quite polite and friendly to the stewardess. And the stewardess is like thinking this guy's a different person.
Yeah, and he's willing to take on a bit of responsibility as well, like think about more than just himself.
Yes.
Like he's like, I'll do that. That's a nice day for a flight. Like he's just, He's just being a person.
The stewardess is probably thinking, has he gone to rehab or something? Like, what's going on?
Is this his twin brother or something?
Yeah, his nice twin brother.
I thought it was a nice touch too. Again, I think it was just a subtle choice to make a point of, LA Larry and Arizona Larry. The tie with the vest, he's just dressed up a tiny bit more.
Oh yeah, he's dressed more conservatively. Yeah. He looks a bit nicer. Yeah, he's got his vest on and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, like
right.
he's just a bit more concerned with how he's presenting. And I think that's just reflective of like he's thinking about more than just how he feels.
Yeah, he's not wearing his typical like jeans or slacks. Like a shirt, a button shirt.
Totally. Yeah. I thought it was a good choice.
Yeah, it was a very good choice. Yeah, you can see like even physically he focuses more on his like, his appearance as well.
Yeah. More concerned, I guess.
More concerned, yeah. Oh, more conservative, you said.
Well, both. More concerned and more conservative.
And both, yes. The two cons. The scene cuts to Larry, who goes to Richard's house and he embraces him. And he says that he's a good friend and he will donate a kidney to him. And Richard is very happy to hear this. He notices a putter in a set of golf clubs in a golf bag. Larry grabs it and he says that he loves putting like this, as he putted with one of these previously and did really well with it. He asks Richard if he can borrow it. Richard hesitantly says no. Larry says that he'll take really good care of it, and he's still got his, I call it the Arizona persona. Where he's not arguing with Richard. He's just really like polite and he's understanding that Richard doesn't want to give it to him. He asks again and Richard still says no. And the second time, well, Larry at first, he's got his Arizona persona. Larry is about to go nuts. He's about to, go off like he normally would with Richard, but he composes himself. He puts the putter back and he says he still loves Richard. And he says, God bless you, as he walks off. And Richard is stunned and he's like, God bless you. So yeah, he's just as confused as everyone else.
Yeah, I think Richard expects Larry to get upset by the fact that he didn't let him use his putter, but he, like you said, he composes himself and puts it back and he's like, I respect your decision and I still love you, and gives him a hug and walks out.
And says, God bless you on the way
God
out.
Bless you. Yeah, Richard doesn't know what's going on. I mean, he's probably happy that his friend rocked up and said, hey, I'll give you my kidney, but it's all a bit overwhelming for Richard. He's just confused. He's like what happened? Why the sudden turn?
I know. He's just like, what the hell? And why are you dressed like that?
Yeah, it's all it's a lot to take in.
Indeed. Larry arrives home and greets Cheryl as he embraces her and really kisses her passionately. Like not sexually, but kind of like, like in those old-timey like films where they like kiss each other like really passionately, like their faces kind of like embrace. It's kind of like that. And even Cheryl's like surprised. And Cheryl asks what he's wearing, as in the vest and the tie. Larry says to Cheryl that he wants kids, which confuses Cheryl. He says that God saved him from his drowning in the Larry David sandwich. That was the first episode of this season. And he said God did this. And he says that he will donate a kidney to Richard. So, even Cheryl's like confused with Larry's persona.
Yeah, it's just a big change very quickly.
And now he wants children, whereas I think the plan was they were childless.
Yeah, he's gone from being a neurotic, selfish weirdo to a well-adjusted, generous, thoughtful person in like 2 days who wants a family. It's a lot for people to I understand why Richard and Cheryl seemingly just have a bit of confusion and probably even a bit of whiplash. Like, who the fuck is it? Like, yeah, what happened? Is he in a cult now? Like, was he brainwashed? Who is this person?
Who is this person? And Cheryl, I guess at this point, she's probably, her biological clock is probably still ticking, but she probably, at this point, if they were to have kids, she'd probably have a bit of time to get one out, maybe.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, women can still have kids into their 40s, and I think Cheryl's probably late 30s, early 40s.
Late 30s, yeah, late 30s, early 40s, yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time, yes. But, and she's really confused. Yeah, I just love Cheryl's reaction too.
Yeah.
She's like, what the hell? What have you done? What have they done to you?
Yeah, I think because it's such a big change so quickly, it's not like sometimes you see, I guess it was in the last episode, how Larry acknowledged that the $150 that he was sent, was for a replacement jacket. And Larry said that was a nice gesture. So on the occasion where Larry shows, I guess, warmer humanity, Cheryl enjoys it. She's like, she sees signs of hope that he can be a better person. But when it's a complete personality overhaul in 2 days, 3 days, it's a lot.
It is, yeah. Like, it's just too much.
Yeah, she's confused. She's like, it's not just a little thing that Larry said or did that makes her go, oh, that's nice. That's not who you normally are. It's who the fuck is this person?
Yeah, I think one of her main objectives in the whole series overall is like, or especially when she's with him, I think Cheryl wants Larry to be a better person. I think that's kind of like one of her goals. She's like, she knows that Larry is generally a good person, even though he's neurotic, but She just wants him to kind of showcase it more. I think that's kind of, is that what you think Cheryl is like? It's kind of one
I
of
think
her
so. Yeah,
objectives. Yeah.
I just think, like, again, the point I made about the last episode, Cheryl was a bit surprised that Larry was thoughtful about the $150 and what its purpose was. And, she even says that. She's like, it's nice. I can't remember what she says exactly, but it's something along the lines of, it's nice to see you being thoughtful, or, it's very considerate of you. And she's even turned on by it. But that's a small little flash of Larry being nicer than he normally is. When he rocks up 3 days later after being in Arizona and he's just a totally different person, that's more than just Larry showing a tiny bit of being nice. That's a totally different person. So if this was a permanent change within Larry, like if this was who he was forever for the rest of their lives, I think Cheryl would catch up eventually and appreciate it. But it's just a lot to take on. It's not just one nice little gesture. It's a totally different personality, and it would just take her a while to get her head around it and accept, like, fuck, okay, this is who Larry is now. But I think, she would come around to it and go, well, that's good. It's just a lot to catch up on.
Yeah. And Cheryl, by this point, is almost at breaking point in the marriage. Like, the seams are falling apart in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not as jovial as she used to be in the first couple of seasons.
No, she's for a while there, she was a bit more passive. I just don't think she cared as much, or she didn't know what to do. And then she was a bit more defensive, like pushing back against Larry. And now she just seems indifferent. She's like, you know what? Yeah, she just cares less and less.
Yeah, it's really starting to eat at her.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, the marriage, yeah. Larry is in the hospital bed in a gown, ready to be operated on. He's in like a waiting area, and he's really calm. The doctor, or the orderly who's about to... Oh, no, I think it's the doctor. He has a stethoscope around his neck. A doctor comes in, and he comments on Larry being quite calm. And normally people aren't this calm when they're having a kidney transplant or having their kidney taken out. Larry says to the doctor that God will help him. Larry explains the situation about Richard with regards to the putter, and the doctor says that Richard will always be in debt to Larry, as Larry says Richard won't even lend him the putter. So, the doctor says that Richard will always be forever in his debt. So he's got that to look forward to. The scene cuts to Richard and Larry. They're both being wheeled in the hallway towards the operating room, and they're going down the hall. Richard says what Larry is doing for him is the best thing to ever happen to him, and that he will do anything for him for the rest of his life. Anything you ask, I will provide it for you. Anything you want, Larry, you can have it. And so he's like, the doctor makes a good point. So the doctor said before, Richard will always be in debt to him, and Richard basically affirms that, which is nice. Yeah,
and I think the doctor also makes a joke of like how Richard will just be a slave for the rest of his life.
Yeah, a slave for the rest of his life. And the doctor actually mentions that Richard won't even loan Larry a putter. And Richard's like, you told them that story.
Yeah.
So Richard's like, he's content in bliss, and then suddenly he kind of goes out of it a little bit, and he's like, what the hell? You told him that story?
Yeah. But
so
Larry,
it's back to like the frenemy relationship.
Yeah, where even in Larry's like contented, this is the right thing to do, peaceful situation, he still has to slip a little. But yeah, he won't do this for me. Like he still.
No, it was the doctor that mentioned it, not Larry. No, the doctor brought it up.
No, but Larry mentioning it to the doctor.
Right.
Like a very subtle slight of like, well, I'm doing this for my friend, but he still won't lend me his putter. Like it's, even with his massive personality change, there's still hints of the old Larry there.
We saw hints when he was at Richard's house too. He was about to go off at Richard about the putter, but then he
that's still his instinct, but he's got to correct himself.
Yeah, he does. Omar is running down the hall, and he goes up to Larry and says that there has been a big mistake, and the Cohens, are not his parents, and that he is not adopted. Larry can't believe it, and he screams in horror as he tries to leave his bed, as he is forced and restrained down by doctors as they head into the operating room. And I love the last cut where Larry's like screaming no, and he goes through the operating room doors. He's realized that he's made a big mistake.
Yeah, it's funny how, I mean, he could still, I don't know, it's like...
He can still get out of it, can't he? Like, technically...
I think so. I don't think, like after a certain point, it's obligatory. I think you can still pull out. I mean, you'd be a pretty shitty person too at that stage, like as you're being wheeled into the operating theatre. But yes, I think still technically is a right to opt out.
To opt out, yeah. And I feel like at this point, this is where like Larry's, he thought what he thought was his like real life, his real family and stuff. It all just unraveled in front of him. I felt like really sad for him. Like, and Omar, he's supposed to be like one of the best PIs in LA, and even he fucked this up. So
yeah, I mean that's a pretty big detail. You think you would have triple, quadruple, quintuple checked that, before before delivering that news, because you don't hear from him for weeks. Larry, like, he kind of disappears for most of the season. So he's obviously being thorough, doing his research. And like you said, he's got the reputation for being one of the best PIs around. And just the way he delivers it, I mean, obviously that's news you'd want to get to the person straight away. You wouldn't wait and say, "Oh, by the way, you're not actually adopted."
That's why he's running down the hall.
Yeah, like that's that's a pretty significant correction to make. But he doesn't even explain how it happened. Like, he just goes, "Oh, by the way, you're not adopted," and that's
no,
it.
You're not. Yeah, and the Coens aren't your parents. Which Larry thought that this will be his life. He'll eventually probably move to down like rural small town Arizona, or be closer to his family eventually. But no, he realizes that he is actually a Jewish person who grew up in New York and was born in New York.
Yeah, he is who he is.
He is who he is, and he tries. I felt actually kind of sad for him after that.
Yeah. It was a lot to find out your real parents, and that your whole life has been maybe not who you should have been, and then now to have it completely blown up by the person you trusted to find out about your life is it's a bit of a roller coaster for poor old Larry. And Richard as well. Like, he was desperate for a kidney. His friend said, "I'll give you a kidney," and then his friend immediately is trying to pull out of it. It's just a lot for everyone.
A lot for everyone. They probably had to calm both of them down.
Totally.
And then give them anesthetic to shut them both down.
I can imagine to convince Larry. I can imagine him being in the theater, and Larry's like anxious and doubtful and trying to get out of it. I can imagine Richard saying, "You know what? I'll let you use the putter just to as a concession.
You can use all my golf clubs anytime."
Yeah, it's like,
it's all good.
If you do this, I'll you can have my golf clubs.
Yeah, he probably compromised like that, Richard. Yeah.
You told him about the putter? No, it was an innocent conversation. Why would you even bring it up under the circumstances? I actually defended you.
Mr. Davis.
Defend me? Why don't you call E.T. or Pat O'Brien?
Mr. Davis.
I mean, how dare you? You have to gossip? What kind of person are you?
It's been a big mistake, okay?
Huh?
The Coens, they're not your parents. You're not adopted.
What are you talking about?
You're not adopted.
2 months later, after the operation, Richard is in Hawaii with a much younger woman on the beach, and they're kissing and they're enjoying life as they run towards the water. So we can see Richard is much healthier. He's he's got the ability to run to the water. So obviously the kidney helped him a lot, and he's back to his old. He's probably feeling more invigorated and younger than he used to be.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a totally different person. He's 2 months before this scene, he was, as Larry described him, a specter of death. He was hobbling. He looked 157,000 years old. He was on death's door. Well, not on death's door, but he was on his way out, and now he's like sprightly and hanging out with a hot model, drinking a cocktail in Hawaii.
I think it was Hawaii.
Hawaii, yeah, some beach somewhere tropical, somewhere where we'd rather be. So it's been a massive change for 2 months for Richard, over 2 months.
Yeah, no, it's good for him. But the scene cuts to Larry, and Larry wakes up from his bed and he's still in hospital 2 months after the operation. So it sounds like the transplant didn't go well for him.
Yeah, obviously complications.
His
age. Yep. It's too much on his body. Who knows?
Big deal. So yeah, Larry, unfortunately, despite Richard, feeling the best he's probably felt in like 20 years, poor Larry, he's closer to death than Richard was.
Yeah, it's come at a great cost.
Yeah, absolutely, for Larry. He wakes up from his bed and he instantly tells Jeff, who's in the room with Susie as well as Cheryl, Larry's lawyer, the rabbi from earlier in the season, and a few other characters that we've seen as well. Larry wakes up and instantly tells Jeff that he lowballed him for his car by $5,000.
Yeah, and Jeff, like, you can tell he's lying. He doesn't even think about it. It's not like he's like, he just goes, "Oh, I must have looked at the wrong book."
You must have looked at the wrong book.
That's bullshit. Like, he's just lying like it's second nature.
No shame.
Just like, no, he just tells another lie to cover up a lie. Like, it's all good. I thought it was worth mentioning the rabbi is I can't remember the title of the episode, but he's the one whose brother died on September 11, but
not due to the terrorist attacks.
Just
that's right.
I think it was a bike courier and he got hit by a car or something. On the date.
That's the one. Yeah, the same guy. Yeah. Same guy.
Rabbi.
He asked Jeff to give the remaining $5,000 to Cheryl. And Jeff promises that he'll do that. His doctor from earlier in the season, so the one, from season 4. So remember Larry, he had like the heart thing. He had like the machine on him.
Yeah, before he's cleared to act in the
That's right. Yeah. So his doctor, that same doctor looks over him at the hospital. So he's working at the hospital as well for some reason. I don't know. Unless if Larry, that's Larry's private doctor, and then he asked his doctor to personally, look over him. I don't know. But he happens to be at the hospital working there for some reason. But there you go. The rabbi from earlier in the season, like I said, with the brother who died on 9/11, but not because of 9/11, he sees how Larry is doing. It's implied that Larry is probably dying as the rabbi asks if he has his house in order. So, yeah, these aren't house in order. Aren't really the words you want to hear. Is everything in place for your loved ones when it's passing. So Larry is not doing too well. The rabbi asks if there's anyone in his life that he can get forgiveness for, as a montage plays of all the people over the entire series up until this point who Larry has pissed off. So basically, Cheryl's father from Beloved Aunt. Who else? God, there was like so many of them. There was Richard's first girlfriend from season 1 who he hated straight away. Oh, there's just so many people that Larry pissed off. The valet, the black guy who Larry thought was a valet, but he was like waiting for his car.
Yeah, no, you see Wanda in there. You see the Jewish guy who plays Wagner. You see, there's basically everyone. And I don't think that this is even everyone who is fucked over or pissed off. This is just like a highlight reel. You could probably have a triple long montage and not even cover everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like a nice 30-second to 1 minute highlight reel. It was great.
Yeah, probably more memorable episodes or characters. But yeah, I don't think there were so many that they didn't include.
Yeah, and there's so many, especially like Ben Stiller and stuff. I don't remember he was there.
David
David Schwimmer's father was there.
David Schwimmer's dad. Well, you heard the message on the machine.
Yes. You cocksucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like Larry thinking of all the people he's like, most of the people he's pissed off during the series so far. And Larry turns to the rabbi and says, no, there's no one.
I like it was just like, nah.
That's right.
You think, considering what Larry's gone through, and also again his change in personality when he met who he thought were his real parents for a few days in Arizona, you think he would be like, yeah, you're right. Like, can you call these people or can you pass these messages on? But he's just like, he's back to his. I think at this stage he's like, you know what? I'm about to die. Who gives a fuck? He's like, whatever.
Yeah. I found out that my Arizona life wasn't real. So,
I gave a kidney. I feel like in terms of karma, like I don't think he's permanently altered anyone's life by fucking people over. Like, I don't think he's caused any like long-lasting trauma. Maybe in a few circumstances, but overall, his pissing off people or his fucking over people is pretty contained. Like, it's not this ongoing issue for people, like after Larry's not in their life anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like giving a kidney, kind of, I guess in terms of karma, rights a lot of those short-term small wrongs, Like, I feel like he's, he might not have squared everything off, but I feel like he's gained a lot of karma by doing something so life-changing for Richard compared to just a lot of like little minor pissing people off.
He's absolved himself of all the minor.
Yeah. Because when you think about it, most of the things that he does to piss people off, again, aren't, don't cause lingering trauma or haven't altered anyone's life in this permanent way. They're just very circumstantial, like not taking your shoes off or misprinting a word in an obituary. Like, these aren't life-changing, unalterable things. They're pretty short term.
Yeah, which you kind of get over later on.
Yeah, I think most people would just be like, fuck Larry, and then, that's it. They wouldn't care anymore. Yeah, but giving a kidney, I think, goes a long way to right all of those little wrongs off.
Yes, I know. Well, but unfortunately for Larry, he's basically dying. So this doesn't really.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't save his life at this point. But just in terms of karma, I guess it's I think he's closer to even than he's ever been.
Yeah, I think so too. And so it's kind of like it's evened out, so he can kind of like die now.
I think that's how Larry's thinking about it. Is like, you know what? I've thought about all these people I pissed off, but also I've sacrificed my own life to save my friends, so I don't give a fuck.
It's good.
I feel good.
Everything's evened out. Yeah, basically, one kidney is like 100 people I've pissed off. It equals 100 people.
Yeah,
I've pissed off.
exactly. Yeah, at the cost of my own life too.
Exactly.
Is there anybody right now that you can think of you'd like to ask for forgiveness and make right with?
When you walk through my door, you play by my rules. You take off your fucking shoes.
Devoted sister, beloved cunt.
He's a racist, a bona fide racist who preferred not to work with any black people under any circumstances.
You fucked up.
Larry, you ate the baby Jesus and his mother Mary.
You were following my wife?
I wasn't following her.
She called the cops on you. What do you mean? Look at me.
You know that my brother-in-law died on September 11th. How dare you say something like that?
See, if this were yours, it would say fucking douchebag. You motherfucking cock-sucking son of a bitch bastard.
He talks to Jeff again, and he says to Jeff that he puts too much mayo on his sandwiches. And Jeff's like, okay, I'll put less mayo next time. Just something really like basic. And he also says to Jeff that he shouldn't have made him do the TV guide cover for Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Larry says he didn't enjoy it at all.
In terms of grievances that you want to air on your deathbed, especially Jeff, and they've been through a lot, and they've gone on, they've been on a lot of misadventures. In terms of grievances, that's pretty minor. It's, I could live with, like, if someone wanted to air their grievances towards me on their deathbed and they said, your sandwiches have too much mayo and I wish you didn't make me do that magazine cover back in the day, I'd be like, you know what, that's not too bad.
That's all right. You came off nicely.
I got away fairly unscathed.
Yeah, you came off nicely.
Yeah, I'm not going to feel guilty for making this person's life bad after they die. It's like, yeah.
And I think because Larry already resolved the $5,000 issue, just moments ago, saying just give the $5,000 to Cheryl, that's fine. And that's all good. And Jeff's like, yeah, I'll do it. So basically, like, that was like the main grievance, which was resolved. And then the other two were like so minor.
Yeah.
Like Larry remembers it, but Jeff's like, oh, I don't remember that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just non-events. Too much mayo and a magazine cover. Who cares?
Larry speaks to his real dad, who's in the room as well, and he tries to apologize about the adoption issue, but he can't say the word. It's a reference to the Larry David sandwich when Larry's dad was in hospital, and he was trying to say something which sounded like adopted or adoption, and that's what kicked off the entire story arc of season 5. So it's funny how it's gone full circle, and it's Larry in the bed trying to say adoption, and then Larry's dad's like, oh, a doctor? Do you need a doctor? I think he needs a doctor.
Yeah, no, it was a nice bookend and a role reversal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny how it was the thing in episode 1 that started this whole situation, this whole journey for Larry. So it's funny.
Yeah.
Susie goes up to him to see if there's anything they want to talk about. He instantly dismisses her. And Susie's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think Susie should be surprised considering how, and again, we say, I think every episode, Larry is never totally innocent, but he's never totally guilty either. And he's done a lot of things to screw with Susie and make her life harder. And, he fucks with Jeff, and Jeff gets caught up in shit, which stresses Susie out. Like, Larry's not entirely innocent.
No.
But Susie shouldn't be surprised that Larry just waves her away and goes, nah, I don't want to talk to you, considering how much she fucks with him as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think she realizes this.
Pretty even. Yeah, she's like, you know what? I probably deserve that, or I shouldn't be surprised that Larry doesn't want to talk to me, considering how much shit I give him.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, you think Susie would, like, call him a fucking bored asshole or something, but no, she's just like, she's a bit miffed, but she's not really. She's like, oh, whatever.
Well, yeah, and it's like, you got to bite your tongue, even
in these situations, yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's on his deathbed surrounded by his family and friends. Like, I'll keep my feelings to myself for now.
For now, yeah. Cheryl goes up to him and holds his hands.
Larry actually says, well, I'm going to heaven now, and there's going to be a long time before you get to heaven. Is it okay if I fool around in heaven? Like, there's, I'm not going to see you for 30 years or 40 years because you're younger than me. Cheryl's a bit confused about the request, but she's like, okay, that's fine.
And that's in reference to an earlier episode as well, where Cheryl says they'll be together forever, even in the afterlife. But Larry's like, no, only till we're dead. So
yeah,
that's a nice throwback to that as well. I love the subtle throwbacks to earlier episodes.
Yeah, Larry, I can't remember. I think it's episode 2 or 3 of this season where Larry is he's not happy with the for eternity deal. He's like, no, for our natural life. And then
that's the rabbi episode.
Same one where they're renewing their vows. Yeah, and Larry's like, I didn't sign up for eternity. I just signed up for our natural life.
Yeah,
and
that was a nice reference to that.
Yeah, and Cheryl's like, okay, that's fine.
It's fine.
And I just love how horny Larry is, even on his deathbed. He's still thinking about, like, I'm going to get permission to get laid in the afterlife.
I know.
Typical Larry, just looking out for his dick.
His dick, indeed. His soul comes out of his body in, like I described before, like that TV kind of CGI, that really dodgy mid-2000s CGI on TV. His soul comes out of his body, and this is the thing that, like, changed my perspective of Cheryl. Cheryl asks his lawyer, who's in the room, about his secretive will. Like, she asks about the will right away. Does that change your opinion of Cheryl? Like she was just in it for the money?
It doesn't. I've always suspected that I don't think she initially married Larry for his money, but I think she's sticking around longer than most people would because of the money and the lifestyle it affords her that she wouldn't ordinarily have. I don't think it's her sole motivation, but I think it's a big factor in why she's sticking around and putting up with Larry, because most people would have left by now if he wasn't a multi-millionaire and she wasn't able to be a rich person. Yeah, I don't think it's the sole contributing factor, but definitely an important one.
But it's inappropriate how she asked that like seconds before her husband dies. I mean, the seconds after her husband dies.
Totally, yeah. I mean, obviously it's front of mind. I think it's just another sign of the fact that in her mind, at some point, probably around season 3 or 4, she'd more or less just checked out of the marriage.
Checked out of the marriage, yeah. Mentally, yep. Mm-hmm.
And she was just sticking around because out of obligation, because they've renewed their vows as well. That kind of makes it a bit more important to stick around, even if you don't love the person or aren't happy in the marriage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think over as her love for Larry has declined and her desire to be with him, I think it's, well, what's left? Well, he's got, I have a comfortable life with him. So that's become more important. I don't think she was a gold digger from the start.
No. She had different intentions.
I think it's just a slow shifting of priorities over time as her love has declined and her respect has declined.
Yep.
And it's like, well, what's left to hold on to? Well, I'm not saying that justifies the timing of her question or even bringing it up at all, like at any point. But I think that's what's created it.
Yeah, I agree. No, it was just added another dimension to Cheryl, because I thought, I understood their love for each other was fading. Especially Cheryl more to Larry more than anything. But I don't know. I just found it a bit. I don't know. It was just ill timing to ask. Literally turn to the lawyer seconds after your husband passed and ask about his secretive will. I don't know. Just left a bad taste in my mouth. Just kind of I don't know. I just don't respect Cheryl as much as a character now.
It's a point she'll have to bring up, but yeah, you bring it up later on after. She's good for now. She should mourn, have his funeral, spend some time, and then, take care of business later on. It's a thing she has to deal with, but yeah, a minute after her husband dies.
Yeah, I know.
Is pretty.
I don't like Cheryl much anymore.
Yeah, very, very, very distasteful.
No, and I'm glad that they eventually divorced. Fuck her, seriously.
Wow.
As much as Larry is a neurotic guy. I mean, he's generally a good person. He's not an asshole necessarily, but you don't ask about your dead husband's money. Seconds after they die. It's what are your motives here? Why are you so? Yeah, and you make great points about she's afforded the comfortable lifestyle and stuff. But I don't know. It just added I don't know. It just left a bad taste in my mouth. About Cheryl. I don't know. I'm sure it'll probably get brought up. Maybe Lara will bring it up next season with her. Just he'll say my soul saw you say that, and Cheryl's what are you talking about? Maybe she'll deny it. I don't know. Maybe something will happen. Hopefully it gets addressed, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just,
I think it would definitely change the dynamics in a marriage, especially a marriage on the rocks. But I guess it would make more sense if, when I'm just reminded of when Susan dies in Seinfeld and George is shocked. And then 2 minutes later is so we're going to go get a coffee. He doesn't care after 2 minutes. But that makes sense because George is a piece of shit who only cares about himself.
Yeah, he is. And he was kind of with Susan out of obligation.
Totally. And they're just fucking monsters.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, 3 of the 4 of them are monsters of the main gang. Yeah.
It's not, I remember watching that episode the first time. It was still wow, that's callous, even for the core 4. But it's not unsurprising. It's still in line with who they are. It's just the most extreme form of who they are. Whereas Susan, why did I just say Susan? Cheryl, it's more shocking because she's mostly a warm person. She's probably the warmest. She's kind of the Kramer of Curb Your Enthusiasm. She has unattractive qualities and she has flaws, but she's the most human, the most well-rounded, well-adjusted.
Well, Kramer isn't well-adjusted, but no, I get your point. He's definitely the kindest out of the 4. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the most. Yeah, he's the kindest out of the 4. So for Cheryl, who we've always described as, that person in Curb in a world full of mostly callous, indifferent, neurotic assholes. Yeah, it's extra shocking, I think, because of who she's been up until this point.
Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know. It was just shocking when she did that.
Sure.
It was unbelievable.
No, I get it.
Yeah. She turns to the Greens and she says that they still owe $5,000 and they deny that they're going to do it and they all begin arguing. So and then the Greens are being bad about it too. Jeff promised Larry that he'd pay the $5,000 and then they're no, we're not going to pay you. It's fine. And then they all begin arguing. Everyone in the room, everyone starts yelling. Larry's soul shakes his head as he ascends into heaven. He arrives and he appears to be a bit younger and he's got a nice mane of hair and he's not wearing any glasses. He's mystified by heaven. It's exactly like as it's, as people have described it. It's a little cloudy, white, very glowy, very serene. A couple of guides go up to him to say hello to him as they lead him towards heaven. They say that lots of famous people in heaven really respect Larry David, and they love Seinfeld, including Ponce de Leon and Marilyn Monroe. And I love when Larry says Marilyn Monroe loves Seinfeld, and she goes, "Oh," they said, "Oh, she's a huge fan." He's got lots of respect up in heaven.
Yep.
For the show. So they still watch Seinfeld up there.
Yeah, this is like Larry's heaven, where everyone respects him, no one dislikes him. His two spirit guides are two well-respected famous Jews. This is like Larry's version of heaven.
He sees his real mother, played by B. Arthur, as she berates him for his surgery and the adoption issue. So she has the full-on stereotypical Jewish accent. She really rips into Larry for a few seconds as she vanishes.
Yep.
Yeah. He meets Ben Hogan as he has been watching Larry's golf swing. And Larry asks if Ben can help him with his game. And Ben says, sure, let's do it. The guides reveal that they've been watching over Larry basically for his entire life. And Larry gives examples as to, things that he's done in his life. And the guides have said that they have seen him. They've basically been with him since he was born. They've watched everything that he's done.
Yeah,
they
and
keep
Larry,
chatting as they walk.
Yeah, and Larry says, well, why didn't you intervene in these situations? And I think Sasha says, well, we're guides. We can't control your life. We're just there to nudge you.
Yeah. And then Dustin agrees as well.
Yeah.
Larry explains to them the DVD system, that he did on Earth. They get to that point where they're doing some small talk and they seem to be getting along. Larry mentions his DVD system, and both of the guides say that it is not a system. It doesn't make any sense. There shouldn't be a system for DVDs as they begin arguing. So Larry can't get out of arguments even in heaven. Sasha, the taller guide, calms the shorter one down. They walk over a little bit to turn their back on Larry, and they talk for a little while. They turn back to Larry and walk towards him, and they both agree that Larry is not ready for heaven and that they will send him back down to Earth as they say goodbye. He goes back into his body as Marilyn Monroe, on his way out, as he's kind of going out, Marilyn Monroe wishes him goodbye. And then Larry is saying, Marilyn, Marilyn, Marilyn.
Yeah, I thought it was very telling when Larry's mother says, why did you give the kidney? She says, why would you do something stupid like that or something like that?
Yeah, just berates him.
I think a lot of Larry's, selfishness might come from his mother, because his father seems very, nice and thoughtful. He seems like a considerate, nice person, whereas the mother seems a lot more like Larry. Why would you do that? What? Put yourself first always. I thought that was quite revealing that a lot of Larry's flaws, I'm guessing, are more attributed to his mother than his father.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was interesting.
It was only a 5-second rant, but it revealed a lot about Larry's upbringing.
Totally, yeah. You could see, you're like, oh, well, that explains a lot of Larry. I think when she says, why would you give a kidney? That says a lot. And I realize now that Larry, he gets a bit defensive or a bit desperate, and he's like, no, he wants to stay in heaven. They're like, no, you have to go now. And he, he's trying to convince them to let him stay. I think he realizes that he doesn't want to go back to Earth. Most people would be like, oh, great, I can go back to Earth and be with my wife and my friends. I think that last scene that he witnessed before going to heaven made him realize, well, what do I want to go back there for?
Yeah. He shook his head in disappointment.
Yeah, all they care about is my money. The moment after I died, all my wife cared. She wasn't crying, or she didn't need consoling, or she wasn't saying this makes no sense, or how could he leave me? It was, where's the will? I think he realizes, what am I going back to? I'll just stay here where I can be respected and hang out with cool Jews.
Yeah, exactly. So Larry's kind of, he's very hesitant to go back. I don't blame him. Yeah, that's why I feel like for the first time in the series, so far that we've watched, I feel sad for Larry in this episode.
Yeah.
I feel sad that he could have had, if Omar didn't run in, even if Omar made a mistake, if he never ran in and Larry, he thought he was from small town Arizona, and if that was the life he was going to lead for the rest of his life, even though it was fabricated and wrong, I don't know. I'd feel like it would be a good ending for him. I don't know. And the fact it all got ripped out from him just before he's about to do something really life-changing and life-threatening to him, which culminates in his death and then his resurrection. I don't know. I just feel really sad for him.
Yeah, it's you see what could have been, and you see a lot of potential redemption, and a good path for Larry, and a life that could have been his, all just taken away. Yeah, so it's you feel sorry for Larry, and also what could have been, and what you feel sorry for what hasn't happened as well as what has happened.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they address this in season 6, but if not, then they'll just continue on as normal.
Yeah, look, I mean, as usual, Seinfeld did this as well. Like anytime they'd sort of get a bit touchy feely or a bit philosophical, they just bring it back to itself, which is, you know what, we're all just assholes. Who gives a fuck? Like, it comes back to the nihilism pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, we see that in the final scene. We see that it goes back to the nihilism, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so which is that's Larry's formula. It's like never lean too far into, or just if there is any depth or emotional complexity or growth or whatever, just cut it off at the knees and bring it back to what we all want to see, which is Larry just going around being a jerk.
Yeah, being a jerk. No hugging, no learning. That's Larry's philosophy. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, maybe in season 6 they don't even address it. Who knows? They'll probably just go back to normal.
Yeah.
Everyone from before in the hospital room are arguing still as Larry's soul goes back into his body. He wakes up and Larry's alive. He sighs. Everyone's stunned rather that he's waken up, and he sighs that he has no hair. He touches his head and he's like, "Oh, I'm back to my balding self." Damn. In the next scene, Larry is being discharged from hospital. He's getting ready. He's in his hospital room packing up. And Cheryl is there helping him pack his bags. Cheryl says that he looks good. And Larry feels different after what happened. So obviously, we're going to heaven and realizing everything and that sort of thing. So yeah, he feels and looks like a different person as well. So Cheryl's quite impressed with Larry, saying that he does actually look pretty good. So maybe she feels, I don't know, maybe she feels some guilt about asking the lawyer. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's just happy that Larry seems a bit, just a bit less Larry.
Yeah, that's right. A bit less Larry. The doctor from earlier on arrives and he brings in a wheelchair, and he says that Larry has to leave on a wheelchair as per protocol as Larry sits down. He's being wheeled out and he asks if he can use the handicapped bathroom. He's about to get up off the chair, and an able-bodied man walks out of the handicapped bathroom as Larry questions him and says, "Why didn't you just use the normal bathroom?" And the guy's like, "I had to go, and the restroom is occupied," and he was desperate. And Larry just berates him. So another nice reference to an earlier episode.
Yeah.
About the handicapped person, and Larry gets his comeuppance with him. But yeah, it's a nice throwback to that as well. He gets up off the chair and walks into the bathroom, and that ends the episode and the season. And you're right, Stephen, like it went back, it went all like really dark, like deep and philosophical. And you're right, Larry has that ability to just bring it all back. So we went back to like a curbism, like a confrontation over something really minor, and that basically ended the season.
Yeah, and Larry being hypocritical, he berates a dude for misusing the
bathroom,
the disabled bathroom, but he uses it as well.
Yeah, he gets up off the chair and just walks in.
Yeah, like even though he's just recovering from major surgery and death, and a miraculous return to life, he's still technically not entitled to use that bathroom, but he's just like, he doesn't care.
No, he doesn't care. So yeah, you're right. He's brought it back. He's brought it back to reality. The curve
exactly.
Reality, yeah. Stephen, I really loved this episode. I was going to give it 5 out of 5, but I might just knock off half a mark. 4.5 Larry's out of 5. Definitely one of my favorite episodes of the season. I love how they went like somewhere different with this. I love how they incorporated like CGI, with like the heaven sequence and everything like that. I know it was like tacky looking, and it was of its time. But yeah, I really appreciate, like you were saying earlier in the episode, I love how it became really philosophical. Like Larry, basically his entire belief system was questioned after finding out, supposedly the Coens were his family, which turned out that wasn't the case. But I don't know, just seeing Larry in that blissful state in Arizona, being like a different person, much kinder person, a more tolerant person. I don't know. I felt like really good for him. And then it just all got taken away by an error from Omar, like someone as professional and as high quality as him. And even he makes an error that could like an amateur wouldn't even do. I don't know. It just like everything just got taken away from him, and it culminated into Larry's death and eventual miraculous recovery. I don't know. I just really loved how well written it was. I love all the throwbacks to not just what happened in the last season, like this season, but also previous seasons, when there's that montage of people he's pissed off. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was a really well done episode, and kudos to the writers for really going to this level. Like even opening night was like a big deal, but it was like Broadway. But this literally ascended into the heavens. So really, really, really well done by the writers and everyone. So 4.5 out of 5.
I'm the same. I can't quite give it a 5 because I I really liked the chances that they took. I liked the more esoteric stuff that they incorporated into the episode. The fact that Larry, they showed a little taste of what Larry's life would have been like if he, wasn't given up for adoption, or if he was raised in a totally different environment. They showed Larry just being like a nice, normal person. But at the end of the day, the reason I watch Curb is to see Larry being a jerk.
Yes, of course.
That's why we're doing the podcast. So I'm glad that they, not that I expected them to make this a permanent change in Larry's life. Like, at no point did I think that.
No.
But it was nice to see a little sort of, a snippet of that, a little montage here and a scene there. I thought they skirted the line really well between it being familiar, wrapping up all the storylines without it being too crammed, because I was a bit worried about that. I'm like, they've got a lot to wrap up. Adoption is a big topic. Not much has been touched on since early in the season. Like there's the kidney, like there's a couple of big storylines to finish up, but it never felt rushed. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was just funny. But, at the end of the day, it came back to Larry, like you said, arguing with the stranger about something as silly as using the disabled toilet, and Larry then being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
It came back to what we're here for.
And what'll probably be like from season 6 on.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
But I would love to see, like, not every week, but, once in a while, an episode that kind of transcends the normal conventions of.
Oh, yeah. It's good.
Once in a while.
Totally. I mean, that's what I think makes a good show, where it knows what it is, it knows what it isn't. It leans left and right occasionally, not politically, but
no.
Just in terms of chances it's taking. But it comes back to what we're here for. Like, it doesn't overreach. It's, what's the saying? It's reach doesn't exceed its grasp.
Reach doesn't exceed its grasp. Yeah, that's right. It knows what it is. And,
exactly.
Occasionally it'll go towards something a bit unconventional, but then you're right. Larry has the incredible ability to, like, understand, what Curb is, what the fundamentals of it are, and he just brings it back if it goes too far left or right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, as we were talking about the episode, I realized that this could have been, if the show ended after season 5, this would have been a perfect ending to the show.
I think so too. It just goes back to Larry being like his old self with the handicap.
Yeah, like that
would have been perfect finale. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like the finale of Seinfeld, like this big life-changing event. They all go to prison for a year. Their lives are changed forever, and it's as big as it can be beyond, like, them going to prison at the end of Seinfeld. I think the only thing that could have been bigger is death. One of them dies, or that's the only step they could have taken to go bigger. But at the end of the day, they're just 4 neurotic assholes who focus on small things, as they clearly show in the final scene where they're focusing on the button, the placement of the button on the shirt,
which was what they talked about in the very first episode.
Exactly. So I think, Larry kind of followed the same formula, like this big life-changing event, death, and who am I, and this whole other family, and who are these people around me, and he's questioning everything. But it just comes back to, we are who we are.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. If this was a series finale, it would have been perfect.
Yeah, if this, because it covered a lot of ground. It made you think a lot, but it just came back to, well, this is what we're here for.
Yeah, this would have been one of the best series finales of all time.
I think
easily,
so.
If this was the end of Curb, yeah. But luckily for us, we've got another 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, 7 now. 6 now, 7 seasons after it was announced.
Well, yeah, 6 seasons that exist, but by the time we get to season 11, I'm guessing season 12 will exist. So by the time we reach the end, we'll have 7 more seasons.
Indeed. And then we'll probably get to the point where, if they're doing seasons 13 or 14, we'll probably do it week by week as the episodes are released. We'll just watch them. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be fun. I've never done that before.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we get to that point. But we've got quite a backlog to get there.
Indeed. Yeah. Bit of time yet.
Yes. So like we do at the last episode of each season that we do on Curbcast, we just like to give a little bit of like a recap of the season overall, Steve. Now, season 5, I thought it was generally a good season. I didn't think it was as solid as season 4. I thought season 4 had like more hits. But I don't know, season 5, I felt like the middle part of the season was like great, and especially like the finale, like we just reviewed as well. I thought they were really fantastic. But I found some of the earlier episodes were a bit weak, and I felt like in the second half there were a lot of below average episodes, like the Korean Bookie. That was an average episode, and there were a few others as well. I mean, there were some great episodes. Like my favorites for this season were the Cry Snail, the ski lift, and this episode, the end. But yeah, there were others like the Korean Bookie, Larry David Sandwich. I don't know. I just didn't really like them too much. I don't know. I just felt like it wasn't as consistent as last season. What do you think?
I'm pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah.
I thought the high points of this season were Kamikaze Bingo, Cry Snail, and The End. They were probably my 3 favorite episodes for the season. I thought those episodes in and of themselves were as good as any previous episode, from season 1 to 4. But the misses were more frequent, and there was just a lot of, I wouldn't say filler, but just a lot of average episodes where you could see a potential, but it just didn't work. And yeah, overall the season felt a bit more up and down, whereas season 4 it was like, and 1, 2, 3, 4, it was mostly really good with a couple of little misses or a couple of little average episodes, but there was just, the lows were more frequent in this season. And I just thought the overarching, the season long storyline of the kidney, I think they dispersed that throughout the season well, because they touched on it more frequently. I thought the adoption was kind of like, it was brought up at the start, it was more or less ignored for maybe 6 or 7 episodes, except a few bits and pieces. And then at the end, it just felt very disjointed. I thought if they could have somehow, dispersed, like broken it up a bit throughout the season, I think that for me, that would have made it a bit better, just to keep you sort of connected to that storyline. Because it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Like there are some episodes where they don't even mention it. It's not even hinted at. Whereas the kidney storyline, there's usually, I think in every episode, there's at least one reference to it. Maybe 1 or 2 episodes there aren't, but it was peppered in a lot better, I thought. Certainly not a bad season, just, and especially after season 4, which I think we agreed was just like
probably the best season overall.
Totally so far. And after the final episode, opening night, like that's a pretty hard high point to match. It was pretty good, but not the best. But
yeah, for sure.
Overall, pretty good. I like that it dealt with some more personal topics for Larry as well.
Yeah, we got to understand more about Larry's past and what could have been if Omar was actually correct and he was adopted.
Yeah, and got to see Larry's mother. That was good.
Yep.
And
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, hopefully season 6 brings us a lot more consistency.
Totally.
That was Curbcast season 5. Thank you so much for listening. This was a bit of a longer episode because it was the end is a 45-minute episode. So thank you so much. We had a lot to talk about, a lot to digest, and a lot for you to consider as well. Thank you for supporting us this season and for previous seasons as well. It's really much appreciated. We're enjoying bringing these episodes to you every week, and we're very grateful for your responses on social media, emails, any other ways of communicating. We really do appreciate it, and we thank you for being a part of it. It's probably the reason why we're still doing it, because of you guys. So it's really enjoyable, and we're grateful that you guys are here.
Yeah, no, it definitely keeps us going and keeps us motivated and keeps it fun. Well, makes it worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still continuing. There's no breaks. We're back next week for season 6, episode 1, Meet the Blacks, where we meet Leon and Loretta Black. They make their debuts on the show. So this is the first time we're going to be talking about them. So Leon Black, he's a huge fan favorite of Curb. We see like posts about Leon on our Curb Your Enthusiasm fan club page on Facebook, and we're like, we have no idea what these are. We don't, because we're watching all the episodes fresh. So Leon, he'll be a very cool one. I think we're going to like him a lot.
Yeah, a lot of memes and references will start to make sense, I think, from here on in.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it.
You can reach out to us. You talk about Curb, season 5, even season 6, or anything to do with Curb. Curbcastpod@gmail.com. You can find us on the major social media platforms at Curbcastpod, and we also have the Curb Your Enthusiasm fan club Facebook group, and we have a Curbcast Facebook page as well. You can go on there and share your Curb memes and discuss about episodes, discuss about the podcast, or whatever it is Curb related you want. And Stephen, you can find us on basically all the platform services, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we're on all the podcast apps. If you want to rate us or review us, that would be awesome. Or spread the word. Maybe you've got a friend or a family member that enjoys Curb, and you might think that they would enjoy listening to us. Let them know. And finally, as well, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/mishmashmedia. For as little as, for $1 a month, you can help us pay the bills for hosting and all the costs that go along, and we will be bringing extra content sooner rather than later for Mishmash and Curbcast.
Absolutely. We can't wait to bring that to you.
Indeed.
My name's Ivan.
I'm Stephen.
That was Curbcast season 5. Thank you very much again, and we'll see you next week as we start with Curb Your Enthusiasm season 6, episode 1, Meet the Blacks. I can't wait. Take care of yourselves and each other. Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of Mishmash Media, an independent podcast network. Follow us on social media at Mishmash Media AU or support us on Patreon. All those links are in the show notes.